power.
Okay, beginning.
So we are coursing on with our class after making an adjustment to the channel. This is the class in the Tejobindu Upanishad. And we were just talking about the conflicting pairs of opposites that we all have to put up with. But I was speaking of them in context to this triputi, as I was speaking of adharma, what's not to be done or what's to be avoided, forgetful life and worrisome life, and then the Dharma, which puts you on even keel with your own mind and with your own being, and then the Swadharma, which is your higher destiny. So that's a triputi that's beyond the duality of eternal life and worldly life. Worldly life's talked about quite a bit in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He spoke of it in terms of his own country, as we were just saying earlier. We can look to other countries, but we need to look to our own to find a critical evaluation of what's missing. And you might say what's missing is, as one student told me just the other day, an intellectual life. There's plenty of intellectual life in the realm of secular things, but we find that even that's all leaning towards materialism and greed and enjoyment and so forth. So it's losing any depth that the intellect should possess. But when Swamiji was here in the late 1800s, people were very interested in Vedanta coming amongst them, and this monk from India, and he made quite an impression on them, and they did have an intellectual life. They'd get together in clubs, and sort of like we're getting together here in classes, and hear these speakers from different countries and different religions talk about their philosophies, and they'd consider them with an open heart and open mind, and borrow the best from them, not just in a surfeit eclectic way, but in actually they were interested in changing themselves for the better. And so if we look around our own country nowadays, we find maybe that's gone missing, that there's a lot of apathy, a lot of indeterminacy, and interest in the wrong kinds of things, sort of a hypnotism, you might say, that's going on. The senses all get attracted to the objects. Well, we know that's one of the premises of yoga, as the Upanishad will tell us today when we get into it. The senses are always outward going and focused on the objects, and they think sort of like an animal. It's just, the dog eats and then it hears things and barks and eats, so it's pretty much got two senses going on there amongst the five. But the human being has five that it has to focus on and try and coordinate and integrate into, and it has five subtle senses too. So if you're listening to this class right now, you've come through channels to find it. Some of you have come through channels called highways from San Jose or wherever you've come from. You've come along channels to get here, and some are coming through electronic channels to view this from the West Coast and Hawaii and Europe. And people writing me from Europe quite a bit now. So, and then our own channels, the ear channels that lead inwards, and the senses are all outward going channels that we need to turn and at least be just and equal in their treatment, and so that we can get into these kingdoms of heaven within before we die. The whole point about freedom or Jivan Mukta is to realize that freedom is always now. It's always in the eternal moment. And we keep putting it off to the past or to the future. And even the present is a kind of a cop-out for that. So I'm living in the moment right now, but if you were living in the moment, then you'd probably be in Samadhi or Satori or Nirvana or beatific vision or some deep state. You might even be having Samadhi of objects, because Father of Yoga said there's such things. If you look at the object with a discriminating eye, like science began to do before it found destructive power in the atom, you're looking at it with a critical eye, then you can have a kind of samadhi with the object, not just enjoyment that's based on temporariness because it's going to be stolen or decay or you're going to get bored with it, but whatever happens to the object, but an actual beingness of the object, like Vivekananda used to say, the goldness of gold and the silverness of silver, and the manliness of man, as Krishna says in the Gita. There's something to ponder there that automatically sets the mind in a mode of concentration, and that concentration is peace, and that peace is bliss. So you're always moving in, then you're moving along a much more subtle, maybe even causal channel to your true nature, your Buddha nature, your Atman, we call it in Vedanta. And you can abide with it. Only Atman abides, the Upanishads say. And you can go there and should go there anytime you want, even in the midst of action. I realized my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, peace and bliss be upon him, was always in that mode when I saw him. He never, even when he was he was acting or doing things outwardly, he was always set. His consciousness was set in the space of the Atman. He was doing everything from that. So he wasn't really doing anything. He wasn't really accumulating karma as other people do when they go out and act, because they're reacting to things that happen, or they're enjoying, or they're suffering. Pairs of opposites. They're always caught in that mode of being jerked here and there by whatever the ego and the senses dictate, and forgetting all about the true self, whom I just chanted is the witness of all phenomena. We recognize that one as the witness of all this phenomena. Phenomena is a constant flow. It's change. Therefore, it is Maya. It is samsara. It's only the changeless that brings you peace of mind. And if you don't have recourse to it every day, what to speak of, like the great Swamis, every moment, and in fact the moment disappears and there's no time for them. They're not brooding about death or thinking back to what, looking ahead to what they might gain or thinking back at what they might lost. They're just living in this state of equanimity, which is yoga. It's the word yoga means union. So yoga as practice, there is that, but there's also yoga just as a state of being. And it is a little subtle to see it appear in a human being, because it's rare for us to see it, but it's also noticeable if you have the eye for it. If thine eye be single, you'll be able to see it. Sri Krishna used to say it takes a jeweler to recognize the value of a diamond. So when you see somebody who's polished their diamond, that is, they've been working on inner life all this time, you maybe never knew that until you ran into a person like that. What's different about them? And there's a certain attraction to them that you have. So then you pursue it, or you should pursue it. Come closer, come closer. And one of Swami Sheshananda's students was kind of hanging back, this older man. And Swami Sheshananda said to him one day, "Come closer to the fire, come closer to the fire. You're too far away. I won't burn you," but of course he did burn you. Burned away your karma when you got close, took you by surprise. But that was the point of life. Again, the whole point of life is to master death, because death is an idea that's grown in the mind of the human being, that it was born and that it dies, and that's not the truth. The soul is birthless and deathless. And this is the message of Vedanta, at least one of its main elements, because that does equal eternal life. And bodies can come and go. You can put them on and off like outgrowing clothes, sets of clothes when your body grows, as Krishna says in the Gita. So you give up childish things and you turn towards maturity, and you gain a spiritual life for yourself, and then you set yourself apart you distinguish yourself from all other runs of existence, phenomenal existence, relative existence, suffering existence, mean-mindedness, shallowness, hollowness, the life of disinterest and apathy that's come upon us, as I was just saying. So it's not really that you have interest in changing things that much, you see. You kind of left that phase behind, but you have very much of an interest in what makes them tick. Like, everyone knows the story of Dalai Lama, whose picture's there on the wall. You see, like, he took apart clocks when he was young, see Western inventions, and put them back together just so he would see how they work, It says that anything that's come out of the mind is a reflection of the mind. Everything has come out of the mind that's in form. The mind is the form-producing machine. And it started off with a thought, and then it turned in solid as it encountered the 5 elements and the 5 senses and turned it into solid objects. So everything here is just thought concretized by your own powers. And the senses are in cahoots with that, and the ego is behind it saying, let's have more of this. You see, more varieties, more varieties. But as we will see by these Upanishadic slokas, the yogi stops that progression. Says, I think I'll stop everything and turn back inside and see where the origin is. I'm getting too far away from the source, and I'm beginning to lose remembrance of where I came from. Or ultimately that I didn't come at all, that this is all a dream. You know, I'm still somewhere, myself is still somewhere in a perfect state, but a part of myself decided to separate itself, call itself an ego, a separate eye maker, and then it started dreaming. Sort of like octopus's arms are out there feeling the ocean, but it's one eye and its brain are just right in one place, not moving, you see. So you have a self somewhere, an Atman. It's actually everywhere, but it's very difficult to see because it's like oil and sesame seeds. It's hard to find. And you'd never think that it was there unless you deliberately took on a mission, or a mission from God to find it, you see. So then when you do, you open a channel to it. As I was just saying before, we got interrupted by the closed channel. You open that channel, and then all of a sudden you have access to it. Knock and it shall be opened. I mean, it's been said in so many ways, and these ways become sort of cryptic and become metaphoric, and then they become sort of boring and tiring, as if the old wisdom isn't good enough anymore, and you have to replace it with this new technology, just like everything else is going. And you forget the tried and true routes back to your true nature. You know, they close. And you try and go inside and you can't. It's like people can't meditate anymore. I mean, a child just came through an open channel, and they can meditate, put it in meditation, and it doesn't have, the gunas haven't concretized around it yet, and the ego hasn't developed so much, you see. So it can still like forget these things and have this inner state that it can go to. That's why to be childlike is a high thing in our tradition. Not childish, but childlike. The Paramahamsas are childlike. And they like to keep young children around them because it reminds them of that freedom from ego and concretized thought and limitation and all sorts of other things that impede spiritual life, impede freedom. So living in that state of constant recognition, as I just chanted, is enlightenment. The remembrance of it is enlightenment. But people are still asking, what is enlightenment? And it's on the title of magazines as what is enlightenment. I'll say, well, Shankara told you what enlightenment was back in 700 AD. It's constant remembrance of the fact that all this is Brahman. And you're going to have to do some inspection of that, because things aren't Brahman. That's not what he meant. Objects, Brahman cannot be objectified. In fact, all objects get dissolved into Brahman. You do it every night when you go into deep sleep. You dissolve all objects, and you come out and project them again. You dissolve and you project them. You do it so much that you think you have a word for that called sleep and waking, or dreaming and waking probably would be better. But there's also something called deep sleep where everything goes away. And these three states are the three worlds that I was just talking about: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Waking is this waking dream of solidified things which came from your thoughts, but the thoughts are the kingdom of heaven, and that's where you went to get them, to bring them out and solidify them. And when you go to sleep, you'll turn them back into dream objects, and you'll play with them in a dream. See, that's not that much difference between waking and dreaming, Gaudapada says in his Karika. We see them, the seers see them sort of as the same thing, just on different levels of vibration. See? But it's what interests us is when everything goes away. See, that interests us, because we found out that when we examine deep sleep, or formlessness, or absence of thought, if it ever happened to us, and we tried to make it happen to us finally. We tried to assume death, because the ego's clinging to life all the time, you see. So we never get to see the opposite of the thing. Its life is all there is, you see, and then it becomes demonic life, or confused life, or sorrowful life, or mundane life, boring life, gray little study of life, to quote Vivekananda. And then there's no attraction to it at all. The shine is off it, you see. The shine is off it, and the shit is on it. You see. So you get tired of it, and you want to have that look at something formless, you see, because emptiness is a kind of bliss. There's no responsibility there. There's no impedances there. Your ego's even gone away for a little while. Ahamkara has gone away. Or vrittis have gone away, thoughts, as my teacher used to say. It's just the absence of thought. So people are trying to go into meditation and get rid of their thoughts, the Buddhists are teaching and so forth. They'll try not to think. Just sit there and try not to think. And you find out how difficult that is. Number one is because it's become a habit to think, and a lot of that thinking isn't right thinking. So it's, but then you try to get rid of vibration. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta vrittis, that is, the thoughts of the mind have to be nirodha, erased, made extinct, nirodha. And then you may accomplish that for a while and say, well, this is boring. It's boring, more boring than life is, you see. But no, you have to sit in that emptiness for a long time until something deeper appears, something behind the surface appears to you. You can't expect for it just to jump out at you when you've had years, maybe lifetimes of this kind of conventional life, with your ancestors coming and going all the time. It's become the way you think. It's become your culture. It's what a culture is many lifetimes of certain kinds of thinking. And there's not a culture of, there's only one culture out there of non-thinkers. And those are the seers. They've made a culture of non-thinking. And so they can sit around with empty minds. And that's why they seem childlike when you're with them, and free of their worries and everything that are plaguing the minds of other people. So this is Mother's Day, so I mean, you can see this is a sort of emblem that we're putting up. It's like an SRV flag that we wave in front of our retreats nowadays, because this is real power. Not power that's external, that's destructive, but this is subtle power, even maybe causal power, source power, of a free soul who is now our patron saint, because the West needed, America particularly, needed a patron saint. So Swamiji is it in 1893. He opened the door, a big channel, for this new philosophy, which is actually ancient. It was really timeless. There's three things again. It's not new or old. It's ancient, but it's also timeless. And so he opened that channel back up for thousands of people. But there are still hundreds of thousands of people living with, closed channels. And the waking state is all that's really true to them. So they're stuck in the finitude of death. So when you say Divine Mother in our tradition, or when you say Mother, you think of this great mother called Mother Kali. So last night at our puja here, we offered flowers to the Divine Mother in the forms of Kali and Durga and Saraswati and Lakshmi and Tara Mother Mary is on our altar. And as a sign of this divine remembrance that all is Brahman. You might say, before I realize that all is Brahman, I might want to try and realize that everything is Shakti, everything is power, energy. But you don't want to mistake it for electric power, or kinetic power, or power of nuclear fission and things like that. Those are gross manifestations of it. You can actually, if you have a mind to, trace those into a subtler cause. But you'd have to have an inner life to do that. You'd have to let go of the atomic particle and get more toward the intelligent particle. Jnana matra, they called it. It's a particle of your intelligence that you want to examine, and you have billions of them, just like there are billions of outer particles. And you want to gather them together and focus them on something. Like you've got your own nuclear reactor in there, but it's a subtler one. You see, where you can split apart particles of your own intelligence. You can gather them together, focus them on something, and get the essence of it. So you get the essence out of it. And then you'd know what the chairness of the chair is, or the goldness of gold is, or the manliness of man is, and because it was all hidden to you before, under layers, mounds of external distractions and usurpers to the throne, masqueraders like the ego. The ego really covers the great ego. See, the unripe ego covers the ripe ego, and the ripe ego is the surrendered ego, and that ego can then turn inside to the great ego, Mahahamkara, Lord Brahma. And so this is the month May of Divine Mother principle, and Mother's Day, that is. It's also the birthday of Shankara last Thursday, whom I just mentioned being one of the great Advaita Vedantas. And it's also, the full moon of this month will be Lord Buddha's birthday. So May is a very powerful month for formlessness. But I would say that risky and dangerous, maybe a bit impossible to jump from form to formlessness in one step. Sri Ramakrishna used to say it'd be like if you stood on the bottom step and saw the staircase and you could actually leap to the upper step. You'd be a great leaper, a great jumper, great high jumper. But you would never really know what the middle steps consisted of. So people trying to just go from form to formlessness, like from earth, in all the considerations of lower mind, just to jump to nirvana or to Brahman or to Buddha nature, they're not having a very good time of that, you see. It's not sticking. It's like snow can fall forever on wet roads and not stick. You see. Dry it up a bit, and then all of a sudden you've got this huge snowbank. You see. To collect spiritual experiences for yourself on the way to formlessness, and do it by stages. Don't be in a hurry. So that will take a life of thought, a life of intellectual pursuit, a life of searching out origins to things. See, I mean, we have that to a certain degree in science, but we need it, this inner science demands it too. You need to look towards the source of things, which according to many great beings would be the Word. If you're looking at it in terms of vibration, levels of vibration, the Word is the subtlest of all vibrations, the first thing that God uttered, as it were, if He spoke at all. But then you might also say, the Trinity, or the cosmic egg, or unmanifested Prakriti. Or there are words in Sanskrit and in these traditions which bespeak of a matrix, if you want to use a more popular, common word for that, out of which everything has come. And you don't want to mistake that matrix for God either, because God doesn't create, God doesn't destroy, God doesn't produce, God doesn't project and dissolve. It's completely free of all those things. It's free of all these things, but it's also free of the most subtle things that we would want to attribute something to. It's, as I just chanted, Brahman is pure and perfect and one without a second. And you would think that somebody would see it, would go running out like the teachers do and try and proclaim it to everyone. But pretty much they see it, then it strikes them dumb, if you really see it. And you can't move your tongue, like Lord Buddha under the bo tree for so long had this experience, and then he couldn't speak about it for days. Or Sri Ramakrishna coming out of Samadhi, and they asked him to explain what he just experienced, and he started to open his mouth, and just thinking about it put him back in it. See, so all of his eyes roll up, and he's out of his senses again, and out of his mind, past the kingdom of heaven, past the word, and into a profound experience of Samadhi. He could talk about his lower Samadhis, like Patanjali could talk about the Samadhi of objects, you see. And I have a little Samadhi with my musical instrument here, you see, and get it all together and learn it, and have a kind of Samadhi out of it. So, but it's, even that's going to take concentration. So whether it's a earthly endeavor, we tend to use that instead of worldly, because worldly has that connotation of being shallow and being risky, being full of Maya. But if your earthly endeavors is a little bit more kind, you're going to need concentration to succeed in them. The more unbroken your concentration, the better for you. The more unalloyed it is, that is, without mixtures, then the more blissful and peaceful it is. And the longer you can maintain it, the more it will become a part of your one state of consciousness that you're seeking to attain, that you will never fall out of, like I saw my teacher year after year after year after year into his 90s. See? Just decided, found it, moved there, camped out, never left again. You see, I'm now back with my Atman, thank God, and I'll never take up earth again. I'll make sure I leave no karma behind to pull me back, no strands. Well, that should be an accomplishment that is the main goal of life for monastics. If the monastics don't do that, then kind of shame on you kind of thing comes in. What's the matter with you? You renounced everything. What's holding you here, you see? You have to look deeper and see if you still have attachments to something. I won't, well, maybe I will tell you that what's the similarity between a monk and an old vacuum cleaner? They both lost all their attachments. It just came to mind. I don't know, it's probably an old joke, but you're all smiling, so maybe you forgot it. But if you're a monk, then you should look into this what's holding you to the body. You see, because maybe one of the last things would be fear. You see, that you could stand up and say, "Oh, I'm fearless." Like, well, there's fearlessness. That says a lot of things. You see, when you look at it, you don't know which one to pick. But one of them definitely would be abhaya. Fearlessness. This is the mudra that Divine Mother. Fear. If you're fearless, I will give you everything. These are Varda and abhaya mudras that she poses, Mother Kali, and then her other two hands are holding a sword and a severed head, so you get the idea. The ego gets cut away when you're fearless. So if it's that fear of death, then you haven't quite gone deep enough to see your eternal Atman. You still believe somehow. There's still a residual left over in your thought that, oh, maybe I'm not going to exist anymore, and you haven't really become absolutely certain that you are existence. I used to say that, that philosophers will argue, like in the West particularly, you see, about whether you exist or you don't exist. But they never argued like that in India. They put it all to rest just by saying you are existence. Or you could take a neti approach and say, you don't exist nor do you not exist. Anything that gets the mind off of its penchant for ping-ponging back and forth between something, because we don't really care for opinions. We know the truth. You see, that's what they're saying. Opinions don't appeal to us anymore. There's the truth, and that's just it, and it's direct and simple and straightforward and obvious, and A child could probably perk up when he heard it. Because if you ask anyone, like in this room or around us, do you exist? Are they going to say no? So, even on the outer level, everyone believes they exist. It's just that they haven't really been tested in deep waters yet. Sorrow, suffering is the deep waters of life. The Christian ministers, when Swamiji first appeared on the country here, would go up to him and would say, Christianity is a real religion and Hinduism isn't. He said, I beg to differ. Christianity has never suffered like India has. Our suffering has made our religion true and real. This lap of luxury religion that you call religion, what has that ever done to build your character? So you had to suffer and forbear things and everything, and that's the furnace house of the making of a great nation or a great being or a great nation of beings. Because in India you do have the non-thinkers. There is a society. I've been amongst them. I've seen them by the hundreds and thousands. Even before they put on the color, then they had white on, for years. Brahmacharis, my name is abnegation, and everything is, I'm now absent of everything, and I'm working on the final thing to be absent of, vibration, thought. I go to the word, that'll be the last vibration that I ever feel, before my thought goes into the peace that passes all understanding. What else do you think it would be called? Anything that vibrates is a part of matter. It's a part of Maya. It's a part of thought. It's a part of thinking. And there's never peace in that. What to speak of bliss, Ananda. So all of these things are the earmarks of Advaita Vedanta. And people, as I was just saying, you can't jump to that highest step. You can entertain it. You can hear it. We just had a retreat in Hawaii called Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. The three great proofs of truth, or the three great pillars of Advaita Vedanta. You have to first hear it, and then you have to consider it deeply for a while, and then you realize it. You meditate on it and realize it. And that's, again, one of these great triple teachings that opens channels, if they've been closed. You have to realize that when we talk about adharma, dharma, and swadharma, that there are people, swadharmis, whose channels never closed. It's not like you say, are you going to get enlightened? What do you mean? There's no such thing. I'm just living in a natural state. Call that enlightenment if you want. So there was never came along that I fell out of enlightenment. It's not bondage and liberation. It's like eternal liberation that never had any bondage. You have to think this way about Advaita Vedanta, or you risk putting it, mixing it. It's not going to be unalloyed anymore. You're going to mix it with other philosophies that are argumentative and that don't have that non-dual strand in them, at least not on the apparent. India's always tried to keep this forward. Be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven is perfect. If he told that to his disciples, and Sri Ramakrishna told the same thing to Swamiji, he said, this is the truth, this Advaita, pure and perfect nature. Keep that in your wearing cloth, go anywhere you want, take it out anytime you want. Tell them that first, and then let them think about it for a while. So that's surety, you have to hear it, and then you remember it, and then you have to meditate on it, you contemplate it in your mind. Because in your mind is where all those blockages are to these channels. Why else do you think there's such a thing called doubt? Well, I just heard the truth, but I still doubt it, Even the most intelligent people here in the secular communities doubt us when we talk about it. It's just like that's their modus operandi. I doubt it. It'd be better if, I want to think about it. Let me entertain it, at least, but I just doubt it, And so that's a big blockage. It's a grunty. It's a spiritual blockage. You think about it in terms of 7 centers that your spine represents. Your spine is like, with its different centers, at the root and at the genitals and at the gut and at the heart and at the throat. And I mean, this is all fairly symbolic and metaphoric, but it's also very actual. It's just that you can't find them in your physical body. Your physical body is an external representation of the inner levels of things. Because I mean, right now you can start thinking of, you can think about, I have to go to the bathroom. So now I'm thinking about my anus, right? That's the lowest center. Or you could start thinking, gee, I think I want to go to the shrine. All of a sudden your heart's open, you see. So your mind can, in a matter of seconds, shift these centers. I think I'll look at that, and oh, my mind just went, my consciousness just went here, you see. Come down, the Sri Ramakrishna say, come down, I can't see the world anymore. So if that Shakti, that Mother's Day power that we're celebrating right now, comes up in a pure soul, it has a hard time getting it back down again, you see. It's like asking a bird to come back out of the skies, you see. Come back, he's gone, you see. So your consciousness has to be that buoyant. Sri Ramakrishna used to talk about the hot air balloon. You get in it and it doesn't lift off, you see. Why is that? Oh, I forgot to throw out the sandbags, you see. Your mind is like a hot air balloon that's full of sandbags. I have a chart on that. I've shown it before. And I have some guy out there throwing sandbags out. One of them's called lust, and another's called anger, another's called brooding, and whatever it is in there in the basket of your mind, it's keeping it down to earth so that it can't contemplate its true nature or anything high or more profound or other than just surface things. You throw it out. So the monks can do that, you see, that if they don't do it, shame on you kind of thing, because that's why you renounced the world to do this. So what's holding you back? For the householders, it's more like a hunchback, you see, or a man with a great burden, Sri Ramakrishna said. The hunchback's going along, you see, and with everyone else, and all of a sudden comes to this wedding processional, and it goes by with elephants and jugglers and people, everyone's just amazed at this wedding processional going by. And everyone's standing and enjoying it. Everyone else is enjoying it only without a hump on their back, you see. But the hunchback has to stand there bearing this burden, you see, and watch it. So he's enjoying it too, but he's got this consideration. Well, that's Sri Ramakrishna's description of a householder, you see. He's got the hump or the hunchback of children, wife, husband, money, responsibilities, job, schooling even at the beginning, you see. And so he has to find some way to enjoy this flow, this processional of consciousness that's going on everywhere, and forget this for the time being, you see. But he's never going to be able to shed it, like everyone else is going to walk away after the wedding processional, just all high and in bliss at what they saw. But he's going to have to, limp away with his burden. So for the householder, it's a matter of shedding things that have accumulated, and you're going to have to keep only the essence of things if you want to live the life of a dharmi, you see, the life of a dharmi. Be careful, a dharmi sounds like you're saying a worldly person. But then to remember then that the beings who wrote these Upanishads and left them behind for us were really people whose channels were always open. They'd been open for lifetimes, and they still kept taking bodies. Jivan Mukta. My teacher would use that word many times in every lecture. A living liberated soul who was liberated before he was born or she was born, and then came amongst us free. And that's why we got attracted to them. We thought, oh, wow, that's different, you see. I have to study that, you see. So these slokas right away start talking about that being, and they're calling it Guru. If you've read the Tejobindu Upanishad, That's a point of light, tejas, you see, bindu. So the Upanishad is something that unties the knots. The guru, guru, unties the Upanishad, gets rid of the knots for you. So that's one interpretation of the word Upanishad, which is the Vedanta. It's the 108 of them now we have left. And this is one of the minor ones because it didn't get commented on by the great Shankara in 700 AD. So we have to go back to, that period when Vedavyas came, which was after the father of yoga systematized the 8 limbs, which is after Christ, which was after Lord Buddha, who was 550 years before Jesus, and on back to the greatest souls we can remember, like Ram and Vashishta, his mind-born son. So the avatars, and they call them, and so forth. All this is kind of a fantastic language, you see. Some of it's entered into our English dialectics, but we have to contemplate them again to bring them back, to open channels to them. So, our founder Lex Hickson went to Swami Nikhilananda, SRV's founder, and Swami Nikhilananda initiated him, gave him a mantra, and then Lex meditated on the mantra, and as he was doing that, he was making connection back into Sri Ramakrishna, who is the Ram of Krishna, and way back so many thousands of years before Buddha. And so he's reopening a channel when you do that, you see. Your mantra will reopen a channel. You have to sort of have faith at first that that's happening. And the faith is going to be aided by the fact that you actually see a living soul in front of you who's done that, you see. So when we met Lex Hickson, we were going, and I was 20 and he was in his 30s, what's different about this man, I was thinking, And why am I so attracted to him? Why did he come into my life when I was crying out for God amidst the horrible horrors of Western civilization I was going through, schooling and things like that, you see. And upbringing. My upbringing was even pretty good, but I would never want to go through it again, so it must not have been that good. So, and then there are people much less fortunate in that department, you see. Of course, being less fortunate is actually being more fortunate. I mean, if you've had bad parenting, instead of going to a therapist, you should probably go to a guru and say, thank God I had bad parents. Because now it's easier to give them up, you see. Because eventually you're going to have to give them all up. The ancestor lines which are trying to escape, you're celebrating the birth of babies. The seer is looking at them going, oh boy, here's another knot of karma to try and untie, see. Or looking at a person that's not going to have children, wonderful, wonderful, good, keep going, you see. Or have children after you get free, you see, like we did, see. I mean, this came through householders mostly. SRV is trying to awaken householders to their divine heritage. The monks, like I say, their fish is already fried. It should be one lifetime and I'm out of here kind of thing. Especially if you have someone like this as your example. But he came amongst the householders too, because he knows that souls that are being born who are enlightened, most of them came to India, and a few of them have now come to Tibet, you see, and so forth, because the Indian Dharma has been realized. The ancient Dharma has been realized by these several countries. Far East, you see. Middle East is still haven't even understood that Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad are all the same religion. They've split it into 4 things and fighting about it. My teacher used to say, I will not accept any compromise to Jesus' teachings. The Catholics and Protestants have been fighting for hundreds of years. You see, what is this religion, he said? So we want a religion that's peaceful, ahimsa, that shows the best of the mind. See, there is a good side to the mind, even when it's projecting. You see, I mean, what does the mind of the yogi do when he projects? He projects in the moment and lives in that projection. At the end of the day, he dissolves them all like bubbles into water. That's a sloka in the scriptures. Buddha. Gata jale, bubbles yata, jale, water. He dissolves all his thoughts every day back to their source. We don't, you see. We hold them. If we just held them for a day and gave them up the next day, that would be something, but we hold them for years, and we hold them for lifetimes. We're born with them again. It's called conditionings. Why do you think people are the way they are? Look at their conditionings from past lifetimes. Our psychologists won't do that. Our scientists won't do that. Our religionists won't do that. Our parents won't do that. So, and they think there's no answer for any of this, and it's all a mystery. See? But Kundalini Yoga doesn't think it's a mystery, and Advaita Vedanta doesn't think it's a mystery. Buddhism doesn't think it's a mystery. Neither does Jainism. Where did all this shroud of mystery come from, that you can't just look at it one day with an open mind and dispense it like smoke or like clouds before a sun? See, here's your sun. See, can any clouds collect here? No, they collect in the three lower centers. And if your consciousness dwells in the three lower centers, then you have to look through a glass darkly. Is that Shakespeare or something? So, you have to look through the third eye. If thine eye be single, jnana chakshu, eye of wisdom, the Dharma eye, Buddha said. That's opening a channel to the highest source, or the semi-highest source. If you went beyond that, it's unlimited bliss. That's what can't be described. But it also can't be denied once you experience it. And you do every night in deep sleep. You get a little bit of that. And when you come out and you have a good day, it's because you had a little bit of consciousness in deep sleep. And when you have a bad day, it's because you probably didn't. And you just spent 8 hours dreaming, running your wheels, running yourself ragged in dream. You see, it's this mental projection, because the mind wouldn't turn off, you see. It ran during the day, now it runs during the night, you see. It's like a huge water bill coming your way, you see. All the faucets on all the time, you see. You're freezing in one of them and burning yourself in the other. Can't you just turn one or two of them off at least? Save a little water? So the practical side of Vedanta is not that hard to explain and describe. And like I said, even great householder yogis can then live a life of benefit to everyone. But they're householder yogis. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the yogis and yoginis amongst my fold are hidden. You see, the monks are quite pronounced, you see. But I've got some, and Holy Mother said this too, I gave a few of the householder devotees sannyas, you see, because they were really, inside they were really renunciates, they really came to a full degree of maturity in their thinking, or their not thinking, as the case may be. So those are hidden beings amongst the society, and they'll be a great blessing to them. So that's what you have when you have an Upanishad like this. And so Tejobindu Upanishad, my usual preamble here before class gets started, we looked at it last 2 visits. Before that we studied the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which is that drop of nectar. Now it's that drop of light. So 2 different rishis of these great traditions in India have put out these Upanishads having to do with the Bindu. You see, this is point of light in a very high center. As Ramakrishna used to say, I used to run a boat race between these 3 centers, you see. You must have seen some boat race on the Hooghly River there one day outside the temple, and he says, oh, that's just like me running up and down the river of the Saraswati and the Ida and the Pingala, these 3 great rivers inside of us. We have 3 of them. The 3 great rivers, they call them. And one of them is the central channel, Sahasrara, and one of them is the Ida going this way, and the other one's the Pingala going this way, up, you see. And you're supposed to get on them and rise. certainly not supposed to go against the grain and fall. So a boat race, you see, but he said, I could never go below here. See, come down to the heart, because that's the drawing room of God where I can meet the devotees. So the devotees, you see, have subtle bodies, and they have some enlightenment. And so they tend to kind of congregate around this. See, they've opened a channel through their ancestors, which is the gut, you see, by putting this in kind of gross, obvious terms. And lower forms, you know, of where we don't want to necessarily go. So there's a great power in those lower centers, but you know, you have to open channels for her to penetrate them to arrive at the heart. If you arrive at the heart, that's it for you as far as rebirth goes, or rebirth in ignorance at least. You can be reborn again like they were, you know, to give out the teachings, but it's because your channels are open, and birth and death has actually been seen through by you. I've received a command from the Divine Mother of the Universe that death must die, one of these great souls said. So you have to kill death. My teacher used to say that. I've made fear afraid of itself, and I've put death into its own grave, he used to tell me. So he wanted to communicate to me in no uncertain terms that this is where he lived, you see. And I could believe him because I heard it, and then I meditated on it, and then I realized what he was saying, and I realized it was true. And there's proof of it. It's what I just chanted. Vedanta, Siddhanta, Nirukti, and so forth. Shrutayaha pramanam. The proof pranam is in the Shruti. You see, it's in the scriptures. It's called Shruti. It must be heard. Shruti means must be heard. Smriti, if you hear that, good. You see, that's stories and religious stories and things. That's all good. But Shruti must be heard. That's beyond, you know, what anyone did. Any great soul did. How Jesus came and went, or how Buddha had it. You know, beyond that is the Shruti. This is the distilled essence of what they realized, not just stories of their life. You see, you'll need a little bit of faith in order to believe the stories of their life. Like, did Krishna even actually live? See, it's been so long ago. But you're going to need certitude of your own experience to realize that the Shruti is true. It's not going to, the guru can get you there, see, but you have to do it, the work yourself. The guru is a channel. It's called Guru Tattva. And when Swamiji came to teach it, he said, Guru is not a personality, Guru is a principle. So there are, you can look on the YouTube and stuff and look around at some of these so-called gurus who are just basically turning everything into a mockery of the Guru principle. What you need to do is realize that that one guru in everything, you see, this is the Guru principle, and that's the Brahman in everything you're looking about. But if you're not very adept yet at guiding yourself, then, you know, you have to unveil your own light. They wanted to follow Buddha, and he said, no, be a lamp unto yourself. Just hear what I say, Shruti, meditate on it, and then realize it yourself. You can't go where I'm going, because I'm not a body. I'm not going back to the ancestors. How do you follow Buddha? See? He's a non-being, and he was even before he was born. So you have to follow Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Ramakrishna, and Swamiji, and these great souls as exemplars of formless reality. That is your own essence, you see. So that's going to be some very powerful channels you're going to open. And you have to then keep them open. See, that's the problem here. This is, people can have insights. You see, oh, I see now. And a day later I said, what was that again? See, I better go back and light my torch again. See, And to see, we did that with our teacher, you see. Go back home, boy, I really understood that when he said it. You see, now I can't seem to get that same, my mind has changed, That's the gunas, they're getting in there, and your karmas, and your upbringing, and your society, and collective karma, like we were talking about yesterday. It's not just, it's your own good day, that you're maintaining, but it's the life of the society around you that's affecting you too, that you're feeling affected by. And you have to build up some sort of, resistance to that. Equanimity would be nice, but it's not that practical at the beginning. You have to be on vigil, all the time, on vigil. So you remember of these slokas then, because we've only taken 3 of them, let me read them. It starts out with one word, Om, period. Okay, class over, as you say. That's all you need to know. But you have to know the word. And of course, AUM would be the philosophically correct way of spelling that. Not OM, which is okay as a short version, but A, waking state, U, dreaming state, M, deep sleep state, and then, the Shvara is Turiya, the highest states, which is beyond the 3 worlds, beyond waking, dreaming, deep sleep. Your true nature, see, that little one-eyed smile, I like to call it, or that moon laying on its side with a dot, you see, in the Om sign. So, starting out with that, you see, I could start right now and give classes for days just on that. And I have plenty of charts to go with it, with Om. And we took one of them last time I was here, if you remember. Now, after you said Om, now about that effulgent point, which is the name of the Upanishad, Tejobindu. Now, about that effulgent point, does he start arguing? Does he start giving you a bunch of non-essential stuff? Or does he go straight to the chase, you see? Straight to the point. Om. Now about that essential point, you see. He's not going to preface it with anything. It's going to explain itself. It has an excellent form of meditation. So Om, then that a point of light, which is your true nature, and how to meditate on it. That's an Upanishad right there, in a few words. Open any other scripture of the world's traditions and see if it gets to the point that quick. Is it going to talk about how God created things? Sorry, we don't believe that. God's not a creator. You created this mess. Don't blame it on God. And you created it with thinking, because thinking started out form. So, if you're going to start with anything that makes any sense, let's start with the Word and explain it. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's 3 different things there. But they want you to know about it. See? Supramundane. That's beyond the mundane. Seated in the heart, and it's attainable by 3 methods, Anava, Shakta, and Shambhava. That meditation is gross, subtle, and that which is transcendental. So the gross part of it you get from mantri. You get the mantra from your guru. It's a word, a series of words. Somebody wrote me from Hungary. Not my nephew, whom he knows all from Hungary, but somebody wrote me from Hungary. He said, can I do all, I've meditated and memorized all these things. Can I use them as mantras? I said, no, here, the mantras is very simple. You just take this little symbol, 3 or 4 words, and you repeat that over and over again. That'll open this channel. Then memorize all those other things. Then you have a free license to do so. But without the mantra and the initiation, they're just kind of rambling, you see, in the realm of endless Sanskrit words and formulas. Bring it current. What's current? Right here. This is current. The Divine Mother has come in this age. This is the Kali avatar we're talking about. You don't need a lot of scriptures and a lot of words yet. You can enjoy those later. In fact, that's kind of the point, to contemplate them is a great enjoyment to the Gyanis. But if they haven't gotten their mantra yet, then they haven't been purified. Every lifetime you get your mantra from the Guru. It doesn't matter whether you're enlightened or not. You go and get, from the Guru principle, you get the mantra. That purifies you. And that opens a channel to other holy beings and other paths. Otherwise, you'll never come upon them. Did you notice? They don't even think about God by accident. In fact, they would rather not think about it. What to speak of running into someone, even on the street, and recognizing that this is the person they've been waiting for their whole life. My teacher said something very funny one day. He said, when the egos get together and sees another ego it likes, it says, I've fallen in love. See? But who loves God? He asked him, well, aren't you going to love God? And he said, no, I only love God when he comes to me. So the ego, is right away saying, I see that, I've fallen in love, you see. And there you are, you see. Everything that comes afterwards. But you never love God. Well, I only love God when God comes to me. And then he went on saying, but will God come into your TV set? Will he come onto your football field, your soccer game? You have to open a channel inward to find that. You see. So you're just hanging out in this excuse you're making for yourself because you like to love egos. And egos are not real and they cause you pain. An onion is like an ego, as Ramakrishna said. You go on peeling it, and there's no center. See, so it's just, human egos are like peelings, you see, with no center to them. They were never real in the first place. What else does an onion do? Makes you cry. Yeah, it actually doesn't smell that great either. So egos will make you cry. But God will give you eternal bliss. See? And so where will God come? God won't come and go. You have to go to that. So open up a channel and move towards it. With all good intention and all faith, and with constancy and perseverance. Don't give up the goal. That's your mission in life. Everything else was a dream you had that was putting you off your mission. It was not the truth. Sometimes it was a good non-truth, and sometimes it was a bad non-truth. See? But it's not the truth. The truth is, thou art that. See, I and my Father are one. Aham Brahmasmi. That's the truth. Very simple statements. So I have to say, well, get this mantra with its power bijams and say it over and over again so you remember something about yourself. It might be a past lifetime, all of a sudden. See. Or you might affect a state of non-thinking all of a sudden. You might wake up in a very high state of mind one day. Or you might run into a great teacher on the street, or see him on a poster, like Westerners did back in Chicago and New York. I don't know who that is, but I saw him and I recognized him, you see. Then I went to his talk and the game was over. Game of Maya was over for me. Then I followed him to India, you see. I met the Jesus of this present time, basically. And he put death to death for me. So Anava was the first method, right? That's the gross method. That growth means outside. You found someone outside who gave you a mantra that would open this channel. Now it's up to you to use it like any good furrowing tool. So you just dig it out. Dig for your gold. The second method was Shakti. That's this soul that by mere contact will awaken light in you. And then there's the Shambhava method, or Guru. So there's three kinds of Gurus there. Shambhava is exceptional being. Can even think about you and you'll get enlightened. You don't even have to see that person or hear that person. So they talk about the 3 types of guru, which go with the 3 meditations. That's the first sloka we looked at 9 months ago, whenever it was. Second sloka, even to the wise and the thoughtful, this meditation is difficult to perform and difficult to attain, difficult to cognize and difficult to abide in, difficult to define and difficult to cross. So there's some difficulties. But what else is new? Is there plenty of difficulties in outer life? So you must be prepared to run into a few difficulties when you're opening these inner channels. But store up your treasures in heaven, not on earth. Is the credo. You want to provide for your spiritual life, and it's like hiding things for yourself in another lifetime. See, like I said, I met Lex Sixon. So that was something that was waiting for me in this lifetime. I must have provided it for it in my last lifetime. So I'd run into this person. It's like setting an alarm clock for yourself, because you know you won't wake up, you see. Put it right there. Pling! So this can't be mistaken. And discriminate between whether it's an ego that you're going to fall in love with or whether it's actually God coming to claim you. Because there are difficulties. It's difficult to cross, that's the ocean of Maya. Difficult to define, that's the truth. Difficult to abide in, that's your Atman. Difficult to cognize, that's the Dharma. So there's all these things that are difficult, but that makes them all the more worthy of pursuing, if you're a sincere aspirant. And we looked at several charts. Remember, I showed the 2 types of meditation and so forth. I have them written down here in the margin. And I think we looked at meditation and prayer, the difference between those 2 practices. They both have their high points and they both have their shortcomings. You have to be careful of both of them and be guided. That's what this is all about, a guru. Sloka 3, which is really where we stopped last time. To attain this meditation, one has to be abstemious in food, a master over anger, attachment, and passion. One has to be free from the pairs of opposites, so it's good I mentioned something about that, and devoid of egotism. We talked about that already. Free from hope, which was Swami Vivekananda's least favorite quality. Of all the qualities out there, I deem hope to be the least worthy. If you have to hope, it means you've fallen a long way from the certitude that God is, that existence is, that I am. I have to hope now for something. And free from possessions, attachment to possessions. So these are householders, remember. It's not coming to you from the mouth of a monk who could say that and mean it, and you'd have to believe him and say, I take your word for it, maybe I won't follow you because I'm a householder. But this is coming from householder yogis and yoginis who had children and who raised them in the Dharma, which is what we need to do, rather than jump from the lowest step to the highest step in America, as if all of a sudden we can be a worldly schmuck one day and a transcendental meditation expert the next. How's that going to work? How's that going to work unless you're really prepared for transcendental meditation? Otherwise, TM might as well be BM. See? So you're going to have to set everything up, you see, for yourself. By stages, Sri Ramakrishna said, by avastas. I teach you by avastas. In other words, there's a sloka for that. Anyone know what I'm thinking? Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. We go from lower truth to higher truth. We're taken by stages. That's how we proceed. and we go from the illusion of death to eternal life. We don't go from death to life. We don't even go from death, the lowest step, to eternal life, the highest step. We go from the illusion of death to eternal life. We have to realize that birth and death are non-actual. They're happening to our egos. They're happening to our bodies. They're happening to our minds. But the thing about egos and minds is they have a long shelf life. Our bodies don't. So if you're identifying just with the body, that's the kind of precarious position you're in. Then you're subject to birth, death, disease, old age, decay, and growth. That's called the 6 transformations. You never grow. God never creates and you never grow. You can't change the unchangeable. You can't expand it. You can't contract it. So when gurus in the 60s came over from India saying, oh, let's expand your consciousness, that was wrong wordage. See, your consciousness never expands. It's always perfect. It doesn't grow. It doesn't diminish. It's pure and perfect. Start that. That's the Shruti. See. And here's the difficulties that you're going to encounter in trying to understand the Shruti and work it into your present Kali Yuga day materialistic Western society thinking. See, societal thinking might as well be suicidal thinking. Now, you know, I mean, you really can't commit suicide if you don't have a soul. So even then, death is an illusion. You just are. Now just be. See? You are, so be. They put it in such simple, like Ramana Maharshi, just put it in such simple terms. That's the Shruti in a few words. So the truth is simple and obvious, but it's got these profound trappings to it. Why? Because you've put them there. You've put these blockages there. So if you're going to complain to anyone, complain to yourself for making it confusing and for not going to a guru to get it cleared up. My teacher used to stand in front of us and say, well, I'm saying this every day to you for years now, you see, but the problem is that the guru's not popular anymore here in this country because the church has taken its place. I mean, what did you ever learn in a church that was Shruti? It was all Smriti at best. Maybe it was even rank fundamentalism with a lot of narrowness to it. But if you had a good teacher and a good preacher and a good church, then you had some devotion and some mass and things that you could do that would kind of uplift your mind. But you never heard the Shruti there. And you probably never heard much of the Dharma there. First words, Om. Second words, now about this effulgent point of light, your Atman. Third words, meditation. Straight to the point, that's Shruti. That's revealed scripture. And there's very little of it anywhere outside of India. There are some statements of non-duality. I and my Father are one. Thank God. Birds have nests, foxes have holes. You have no place to lay your head. There are some great statements, you see. But you have to hear them, Shruti, and then meditate on them 2,000 years later, because some of the difficulties that are there to realizing or recognizing Christ's great pronouncements have been added on as clouds and as confusion for 2,000 years. You're going to have to sift through that now. I did that myself for years, because I love Jesus. And I won't accept any compromise to his teachings. He's a non-dual. So I have a chart I just created called Christ the Sannyasin. Christ the Sannyasin. Come to the retreat in May if you want to see it. Basically you have Matthew, Luke, and Timothy. Those three of the apostles were really focused in on Christ's renunciation teachings. They're the ones that had an ear on it saying, give up the world. What did he say? So We call him a sannyasin because a sannyasin is our word in Sanskrit for a free wandering soul, who really can't be limited by any ism, you see, that came later after his life. He was just a free soul. Then they added on the ism afterwards. And whenever humanity gets a hold of Scripture, that's what will happen. All the way down into the hands of the royalty, you see, King James Bible and so forth. And what was that again? See? Or the Gita. Some organization I've heard has gotten into the Gita because they love Krishna so much, they've taken all the words Brahman out of it. Because they don't want to consider the formless anymore. They just want Krishna to be the whole thing. But Krishna told Arjuna, there are many avatars. I'm just one of them. Look at that tree, how many fruits on it? Oh, many. Well, go look closer. He goes and looks closer. Your face is in every one of them, Lord. So they come from age to age. Krishna says that in the Gita. And they come to tell you about the non-dual essence, your Atman, and how to realize it as Brahman. Somebody just told me that, this mudra, you've seen this mudra? That means the merging of Brahman and Atman, see, is what it means. See? So your apparently individualized self is one with the Supreme Self. And here's the pronouncement of it, here's the method for it, and after the break we'll go on and look at a chart about it. So here, let's take our break.